Cool. So here we are. We're gonna do a track breakdown of my new single with Danielle Hollobaugh, Cruel Summer. So yeah, hope you guys enjoy this. Let's just jump right on in, shall we? Cool. So this project came about really quickly, actually. I was just walking down the neighborhood the other day, literally about a week and a half ago, and I heard the song. I've always loved the song, but I was like, wow, I haven't heard that in a minute, you know, and it always brings back really nostalgic things. I like nostalgic things. It's just how I am as an individual, I guess. So I heard this song, the original Bananarama, Cruel Summer, you know, the one that's in Karate Kid and everything. Also a great movie. And for those Cobra Kai fans, you know what I'm talking about too. You know, so Karate Kid, Cobra Kai fans, you know what I'm talking about. Cruel Summer. Anyways, it just kind of brought me back because I hadn't listened to the original in a minute. So I was like, wow, you know, I wonder, it would be cool just to like do a cool funky EDM twist on this song. Why not do it? So I started out as just like a fun challenge to myself. A week and a half later, here we are. But the fun thing about this track was the vocals, and I'll play it for you here after a while. So it started out like with literally this. I'll just show you. It's pretty simple here. It started out with me getting a copy of the track and making the a cappella. So I managed to capture something, you know, usable and vibey, and it sounded like this. I'll just play the a cappella by itself, the one I made. On the streets and the pavements are burning, I see the man. Now I won't play the whole thing, but you get the gist. It's definitely an a cappella, it's there, but it's definitely not the cleanest, right? Which could work to its own advantage or disadvantage depending on your subjective taste. And I just want to play what I initially had come up with, and it was this. It was just, I'll loop it. It didn't even have the synth to it. It's the same exact notes of the bass line that they used, but it has more of a tech, like a deeper tech house almost vibe to it. Don't even know what genre this would be. I'm considering it EDM pop, but whatever. That kind of sounds good. It's kind of groovy. It's like, okay, nice. I kept the tempo, everything the same, so everything would line up to keep it as simple as possible on myself. Then I started layering in synths. In this case, this part only has one synth. There isn't a whole lot in terms of synths going on in this song compared to some of my other tracks. EDM tracks, at least. There's usually a lot more going on. I'm going to start right here, and you'll hear where these vocals start coming in at. And these were with the original vocals. So, I mean, that's cool. I could have lived with that. You know what I mean? Like, I'd made that, I'd written all this at this point, and I've gotten up to this point of taking their original vocals and having that. And I was like, all right, yeah, this is cool. I'm happy. I could live with it. And I could flesh out the rest of the track and, you know, and just do a bootleg remix. But the unfortunate part is obviously you can't release bootleg remixes. And, man, after I started getting these beats going on, I was like, dang, man, like, I kind of want to release this. So how can I legally release this? Well, I can get a mechanical license and do a cover, but I didn't think of that until I had a lovely young lady hit me up on a music group, the Make Pop music group, and wonderful Facebook group, I might add. And I was just asking what everybody was up to, you know, saying, hey, I'm working on this Cruel Summer remix. And you know, she just kind of volunteered, was like, hey, if you want to make it more of a cover and actually release it, I'd love to do vocals for it. So she became my collaborative partner. Her name is Danielle Hollobaugh. I'll put a link to all of her wonderful music in the description. But anyways, she hit me up and I was like, holy crap, listen to this girl's music. It's amazing. It's awesome. She's a wonderful vocalist. I'm very honored to have her on this track. And yeah, so she ended up becoming my collaborative partner on this. So I ended up doing this to all these vocals, the original acapella I made. Sorry, Bananarama. Now we got Danielle's vocals. Let me tell you, she absolutely killed it. Let me just get everything playing. I'll just play it from the top and I'll let her vocals play on through. Again, really nice beat, just it's kind of that party jam for the summer, you know? Got some toms here.
Walks on the streets and the pavements are burning. I sit around.
And Danielle's vocals, just amazing.
Trying to smile, but the air is so heavy and dry. Strange voices are saying, what did they say? Things I can't understand. It's too close for comfort. This heat has got right out of hand.
And we got the bridge here, little thing here. Pre-chorus. We broke it down on this first chorus. I'm going to stop here for a second. I'm going to take it back right at this pre-chorus. Again, just kind of copying what they did in the original track. We went through the first verse, and yeah, I mean, it was just Danielle's vocals. I can't say enough. It's just, she's awesome. But yeah.
Strange voices are saying, what did they say? Things I can't understand. It's too close for comfort. This heat has got right out of hand.
So we just have this little burst rise here. I think this is like 2 bars. Yeah, 2 bars of this pre-chorus. I guess you can consider it that. We'll call it that. And it's just this simple, more EDM pop bass kind of, risers. And mainly it's effects than anything. It does have 2 synths, those on their own. Something that's a new thing I kind of added in. The original track doesn't have this little melody, so I just decided to say, hey, let's throw it in there, make it a little bit more unique. And then it also has this synth, which actually isn't a synth at all. It's just piano, addictive keys. Sounds great. Great for pop and dance and EDM and stuff. Also the sound effects, so you can hear those riding up into the first chorus. And then with the synths, and that's it. You know, it's super simple, very impactful though. And it just hits. And it kind of builds, you know. Yeah, okay. And then you have that signature lead from the original song, which I had to repatch. I'll just show you that. It's pretty cool, right? So and it goes into the second verse, which we'll cover here in a second. Drums, super simple. It's 4/4 kick. There's a little bit of groove on, a little bit of delay on, I think, the snare. If we can open these up a little bit and I can tell you. Yeah, so you have the kick on grid, but the clap is a little delayed and then the snare is a little behind. It's a neat little trick that you can do in dance music. It makes your snares and claps just kind of shuffle together a little bit more. In this first chorus, I have pretty much no hi-hats or cymbals going on, except halfway through I do have the open hi-hat on the offbeat start playing, and just kind of adds a little bit of more interest and power on there. Again, went super minimal on the first drop, on the first chorus, if you will. And I think it's super powerful, and it's different because you're expecting this wall of sound, but it's not giving it to you quite just yet. So that's pretty fun. And the bass, this is pretty cool. I'll solo this. So this is pretty much the same pattern all the way through. You can see it here, my little electro bass at the top. It just kind of repeats through. Basically, I just designed a couple of different patches, 3 or 4 different patches with this, all using the same sub bass. And the sub sounds like this. Pretty sweet. It's a great sub sound. I do have side chaining going on here. You can see this on the bass bus, which I also have automation on. But yeah, you can see I have a little bit of filter freak being automated on and off every now and again for effect. And then Omega N by Kush. Love Kush plugins. Big shout out to them. Some of my favorite, honest to God. Love these guys. And then obviously for the sidechain, I don't use compression for this. I use Gatekeeper or a volume automation or filter automation plugin. All these individual tracks were a little different. I just have some EQ on some of these. Most of them were fresh right out of the synth. This has some compression and some more Omega. Omega is a transformer saturation tool. Very simple, very effective. It can go from subtle to really, really... Well, here, I'll just show you. Why not? And I'll just loop this. It's going to be kind of annoying here for a second, but you'll get the effect. This is why you want to, you want to use transformer saturation. All right, just listen. This is without, and this is with. Without, with. See how that just adds a little bit of subtle weight? And if you build that up over a mix over time, this might not be the best example, but you'll get the you'll get the idea. And just saturation in general goes so far in a mix. I'd say again, use it sparingly, but use it often, but in subtle amounts, if that makes sense. So there you go. So playing just the bass by itself, it's kind of neat. Pretty cool. It's kind of just has that electro pop, electro house vibe,
It's a cool summer, leaving me here on my own. It's a cool summer.
And here we go into the second verse.
The city is crowded, my friends are away, and I'm on my own. It's too hard to handle, so I gotta get up and go. Cool summer.
This time it hits a little bit more. There's more going on. It's more of that wall of sound thing going. It's pretty cool, huh? Yeah, the deep version in the first chorus, and the more explosive one in the second and third, so on and so forth. So just covering that a little bit, it's the same thing as what's in the first chorus, but I have a little bit more percussion going on. This time I have the hi-hat, the open hi-hat completely going during the first part, and then when it repeats for the second time, I have the open hi-hats start going. So that sounds like this if I solo the drums. And I also have the toms playing. These toms I made from scratch. It was kind of actually one of the trickier parts in the project because I never usually make electronic toms. But I like to make all my drums as much as possible from scratch. But, you know, I used some tech house samples just right out of Cubase here. Worked great. The kick I made from scratch from Kick 2. And the snares and the claps I also made from scratch. Yeah, along with the little tweaky glitch elements here, which you can hear. It's just kind of cool. So, you know, it's subtle things, but it builds up in a production. And then the crashes were obviously samples, but I have a crash and a ride cymbal, but those are layered together. Yeah. Just gonna build up. The build up is exactly the same, but when it drops, we have these synths giving it a lot more power, I guess. These are playing the same exact thing, and I'll just play them both at the same time. One's a pad, one's more of an arpeggiated lead. Both of those came from Anna 2. Pretty cool. Into the bridge here, breaks it down again. Did a nice little little glitch edit. I do this all the time in my music. I just really love doing this. Pretty cool. It slowly starts kind of building up, progressing a little bit. And it goes into a chorus right there. And we got these synths playing here, along with... And then we also have some guitars playing, just to add some contrast. And the original had some guitars, but I played my riff a little differently. This has more of a pop, twangy thing to it. I didn't have a telly, so I had to use my Ibanez and just some EQ to kind of make it as close as possible. And it sounded pretty cool. If I mute these, the guitars add a lot to that. It's subtle, but necessary. And just covering vocals, so obviously Danielle recorded her own vocals and just sent me over the multi-tracks. I'm not sure what mic she used, or pre, but yeah, initially they sounded like this. I'll just do it on the lead vocal here.
Cruel summer, leaving me here on my own, it's a cruel...
First thing I did, just to go over this vocal chain, is I added a Mage EQ4, one of my favorite EQ plugins, and one of my favorite vocal plugins. And I took out a little bit around the 160 range, boosted a little bit 2.5K, which is where a lot of her body and her vocal was at. And then I just boosted the air gain at 20K, roughly thereabouts. Yeah, that's 20K. And then I think, nope, I didn't even do anything on the trim. So that's this plugin. Without this, again,
Cruel summer,
and then with it,
it's a cruel, cruel summer.
So, I mean, that pretty much was the sound of her vocals. Immediately when I heard that, her vocals just didn't need much. In another EQ move, I did low pass, about 200, 214. I have a SSL 4000E, again, one of my other favorite plugins here. I don't have any EQ engaged. I do have a little bit of total harmonic distortion V-gain going on, but it's the dynamic section here. I do have a little bit more low pass filtering and just a tiny bit, 19K, right? Sweeping off the top, just subtle. You'd never really hear that, but it was just, it did a little something and I preferred it. Of course, I have some compression, 5:1, negative 10 dB threshold, with kind of a faster release, not the fastest, but medium fast release, and a fast attack. So it's really kind of catching just some of those pesky peaks. But let me just engage everything. I'll just mute this again.
Leaving me here on my own, it's a cruel.
And then with
Leaving me here on my own, it's a cruel.
it just kind of puts the vocal ever so slightly a little bit more forward and just controls it a little bit more. So that's what the SSL is doing. Moving on to another Kush plugin. I have Novatron. I'm doing about 3 to 5 dB of compression on this guy, but without it, it sounds like this.
Leaving me here on my own, it's a cruel.
And then with it.
Leaving me here on my own, it's a cruel.
Now this plugin is doing so much in this vocal chain. What I'm doing is I'm compressing with a fairly fast attack, with a fairly fast release. I have it on the airy mode, and then I have it on the limit mode of the compression. And then I'm compressing about 3 to 5 dB. I didn't really care about the number. I just liked how it sounds. So like anything, that's what I went with. I also added a little bit of this saturation right here, which kind of does some, it's almost like a transformer saturation-ish kind of thing, but it's just different. I don't know if it's transformer based or tube based or whatever it is, or if it's just its own digital thing. It sounds great. I love the saturation built into Novatron here, but I have that on about 30%, and then it was a little too loud for me, so I ended up having to trim it down, and this is what we ultimately ended up coming up with.
Leaving me here on my own, it's a cruel.
This really just pushes it even more forward, and with this release, since it's not the fastest release, it does provide a little bit of pump, and it's very musical. I like that. The last plugin is a de-esser. I won't really cover this too much, but without it, it's
Leaving me here on my own, it's a cruel.
particularly on it's a,
It's a cruel.
and then with it,
It's a cruel.
without it,
It's a cruel. It's a cruel.
just gently tames that, gets it sounding so it's not as harsh. Got to be careful with the S's. You don't want to eliminate them completely. It's a very subjective thing, but if you do eliminate those things completely, it'll kind of just demolish your vocal. Then you won't be able to have the pronunciations and things won't pop out. So you need a little bit of S's. Contrary to what you might hear about other things on other channels, YouTube, other across the web on forums and stuff, de-essing is a super helpful tool, but don't overdo it because then you'll get lispy, and you don't want that. And you don't want to get it too dark and too lispy or anything like that, because then the vocal isn't going to sound. It's not going to pop. Literally, it won't pop in the mix. So I'm just going to keep on playing the way through. It pretty much just repeats from here to the outro, but let's just jam it. Oh, and my mistake. Actually, before we continue jamming, I was going to go over some of the dubs really quick. So this lead vocal, I do have, again, some send effects. I forgot to cover those. It's a vocal plate, some distortion, and a lead delay. But I also have another delay that's a little bit more hardcore here. This guy has an Echo Boy Jr. on transmitter mode, one of my favorite modes, along with tape mode, cheap tape. And then a compressor sidechaining to the actual lead vocal itself. So every time, so this is the delayed vocal, right? And you could hear this. But when it's played with this lead vocal, every time the lead vocal plays, the delayed vocal will be sidechained, and then when this lets up, you'll hear the delay. It's a nice trick to do. in mixes to keep things really clean and without a ton of like crossover frequencies and build up, because the feedback from the delay can sometimes cause that, and it can just sound messy and muddy. That eliminates this. So that sounds like this.
On my own, it's a cruel, cruel summer. Now you're gone. You're not the only one. It's a cruel.
Cool. So I have that mainly playing through the choruses, and then with the dubs here, these things are a little different. So it's her voice just formatted down, like it uses a format shift, and it's just pushed down a little bit more just to offer another vocal texture in the mix. It's more subtle. I didn't keep it super loud in this one because it just started kind of sounding too off once it got a little too loud. Yeah, wanted to avoid that, but I wanted some texture. So that's this lower one, which is what, it's just that formatted one down, the whoop. Has a very wide stereo field. You can see there's a ton of processing. I won't go through everything. It's pretty much the same as the lead vocal, but I do a little bit more high passing, a little bit more EQ. Where at? I think it's on this. No, frequency. Here it is. Yeah, this is an important trick that I'm doing. I'm doing a mid-side move here. I'm cutting off a lot of the mids, and just keeping that out of the stereo range. Otherwise, it sounds like this. It's just it's subtle, but it just forces it up. There's not a whole lot of information down here anyways, but it just kind of forces that stereo image to be up here a little bit more up. And you can see I have a flanger on this lower dub here with a stereo touch. Another one of my favorite plugins. Great. And then the flanger is obviously just adding a little bit of motion. Just kind of exaggerating that modulated feel a little bit more. And then this other dub here, which is actually dub 3, just did them wrong order, whatever. It's the same exact thing, but without the format shift. Super wide, and then you add these two together again, like I just played a second ago, but it gives it a healthy amount of thickness, but without cluttering up the mono path, because I'm doing that mid-side cut. And this leaving me on my own, it's a cruel. I just love that. I don't know, but leaving me on my own, it's a cruel. Of course, really quickly, I do have these little guys here, the background vocals. Basically just doing some hard EQ, cutting off the top end, cutting off the low end, adding a little vocal plate, reverb plate, and some vocal distortion. Same one that I'm using in the lead vocal. Yeah, those sends are being exactly the same, and then obviously very similar channel as the lead vocal, just cut a little bit more off the top so they don't interfere as much. And they kind of tuck a little bit more back in and just offer dimension, and yeah. And same thing with these little guys right here, just but this time, instead of on these individual tracks, I just had them go to a group with very similar processing, just less distortion. Now you're gone. And a nice classy ending with, I call it the pop style ending, where they just have the acapella there for a bar or two, Yeah, it's really, really nice, very clean. Probably one of my more favorite productions up to date. I don't usually do a ton of pop stuff, but it kind of makes me want to do more pop stuff. So yeah, it blends both those worlds of pop and EDM and kind of allowing myself to branch out a little bit more. But yeah, that was pretty much the track. That's available. By the time this video is live, the track will be available to stream. I'll put a link in the description if you guys want to check it out and you know, add it to your playlist library. I'd appreciate it. But let me know what you think. If you pick something up from this, you know, let's have a discussion about it. What are you working on? You know, what kind of remixes, covers, projects, originals? Let me know. And yeah, we will see you guys on the next one. Peace.